Hey guys, it's me Tilly, and welcome to my first video of 2021. This may already be the most important video of this year, to be honest, because today I want to talk about whether or not Vindictus is worth playing in 2021. For everybody that usually doesn't follow me, I really want to briefly introduce myself. I'm Tilly. I do create content on this game on a regular basis, both here on YouTube and over on my Twitch. And another, I think, relevant information for you is this video is not sponsored by Nexon. That means I am a veteran player that will give you an honest opinion, an honest review about this game, because we know how it goes. If the company pays you money to review their game, you're usually only trying to show one side of it, right? But this is going to be unfiltered. I will talk about everything that's also wrong with the game. So you will be able to form yourself an opinion about whether you think it's worth playing for you or not. I will guide you through some of the cons. I will guide you through some of the pros. I will try to discuss the question that's as old as time: is the game dead? Because apparently since like 10 years ago, people have been claiming that. So yeah, let me really briefly talk about what Vindictus even is. It's a Korean style MMORPG. And by Korean style, I mean that you play characters, not classes. You don't play a rogue. You play Arisha. She has a name, she's a character, you can't change the gender, and stuff like that, right? It's like if you played Lost Ark, or if you know about Lost Ark, if you played BDO, it's kind of like that, right? It's an instance-based game, so there's no open world. You won't be able to ride your pony around for 3 hours trying to discover every secret in the world. So that's pretty straightforward. The game will be at one point feeling very repetitive to you. I usually like to compare it to Monster Hunter, if you guys played that before. I love Monster Hunter, don't get me wrong, it's one of my favorite games of all times, but for me the game always has the problem that after some time you feel that you're done, right? You killed every monster 100 times, and that's basically one of the problems Vindictus has right now, where Nexon is trying to funnel everything into just raiding, into killing bosses, and it can feel very repetitive. With that being said though, there's plenty of bosses, so you will be fighting 10 to 15 different ones per day, and you won't just be grinding one single one all the time, every day. So I guess that's cool. Another thing that's really problematic with the game is it's hard to get into in terms of understanding everything. It's a really unforgiving game that doesn't show you the ropes. And by that I mean it's really easy to do mistakes that will punish you big time in the long run. That's basically one of the reasons that I created this channel right here on YouTube, because I want to help everybody to not fall for these, I want to say, noob traps, right? On top of it, or really connected to what I just said, is the RNG layering of the game. So you have RNG to get drops, and once you get the drops, it's RNG if you can make them into something good, right? It's RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG, which can get frustrating over time. However, in this and the previous year, they actually did release systems that make it less punishing. So in the past, it has been this joke that whenever people fail their weapon enhancements, they just quit the game because that's less frustrating than trying to farm the stuff over again. However, in 2020, that has been, or has become, way better, to a point where it's fine failing. You obviously would rather succeed, right? But it's not as heartbreaking anymore, so the RNG layering is still there. It's just not as punishing as it used to be. So maybe that's even a pro. Maybe I'm talking about cons right here, but I'm actually listing pros. The last thing that I want to briefly mention right here, and it's the transitioning from cons to pros. It's something that people have been very, very, very furious about. It's the introduction of a fatigue system. Basically, if you played a mobile game before, Energy, if you played Genshin Impact, Ransom, stuff like that, you are somewhat limited in how much you can play, because every time you do any activity, you will lose some of that fatigue that I just mentioned. However, the game is doing, or Nexon is actually doing a really good job of giving you enough resources to be playing the game. So, just a quick note, there is something that's called vvip that will basically recover you more fatigue than you're able to spend, and they're giving it out on a rather frequent base. So even as a free-to-play player, you won't have to spend money to be able to play the game. And that's basically where I transition from cons to pros. I just mentioned it, free-to-play, right? The game is free-to-play, and other than almost everybody is trying to make you believe, the game is actually free-to-play and not pay-to-win. I can't stress it enough. I actually get angry whenever I see a comment about the game being pay to win, and don't you dare commenting it right now, I swear to God. The game is really friendly for players that don't spend money, because in the game you really do not have any benefits if you spend money. Like, you can technically buy gear, right? You buy the premium currency, you sell the premium currency for gold, you use the gold to upgrade your stuff. Et voila, you just progress way faster than a free-to-play player. However, the gear, it won't help you. I have a character that's 3 years old, that's about max, that's about like top 100 on the server. And that character can do the very same content as one of my free-to-play characters, as one of my characters that I created, and 2 weeks later it can do the same content as my maxed 3 years old character, right? So that just shows you, I hope, that there's no benefit of spending money. Obviously, you progress faster, right? People call it pay to progress, which is fair, which is true. However, in the game, you also don't get really rewarded for having good gear. So as long as you can participate in certain contents, you have the same odds of getting good loot as I have with max gear. So it is actually, trust me on it, free to play. When you play through the game for the first time, there's a lot of people that I've heard about that care about it, so I'll mention it. The story is actually pretty good. If you're interested in stuff like that, go ahead, read through everything. Just playing through the story right now takes you like 12 hours. If you read through everything, it might be double the time, because there's actually a lot of conversations. And something that I almost put into the cons earlier will now be listed here in the pros. For a game that old, over a decade, it actually looks good. And okay, listen, hear me out. If you first boot up the game on the first dungeon, yes, it doesn't look pretty. It really doesn't, but that's the stuff that's 11 years old, right? Once you get into the end game, which starts at around level 1995, 12 hours deep into the game, you will find dungeons and bosses that are looking actually pretty good, even for a game that old, as I said. So since you're not really spending much time leveling up your character, but you're spending more time actually playing the end game, the game looks good for being 11 years old, I'll be honest with you. As for more pros, the community is a very, very helpful one, which is good, because if you remember on the cons, I listed how really punishing it can be. How you can really get screwed by the game. But there's enough people that will give you a helping hand, that will help you out if you are not certain about how something works. So that's a big con in my opinion. The next topic is basically one that I sometimes have a hard time agreeing on, but the event cycle is actually a good one. So I said earlier in the cons, the game is really repetitive. You're doing the same things over and over again. However, they're having an event cycle that basically never ends. So an event ends and never starts, right? You always have something to do that will give you some basic rewards. With that being said, those events are usually more catered towards new players, not so much for veteran players, which for me is meh. For you who might be thinking about starting the game over right now, it's pretty good. Because another pro, in my opinion, is gearing has become really easy. They have been making a lot of changes in 2020 to get player as soon as possible into the end game. I have a series on my YouTube, which is called the Beginner's Diary, I think. It's me playing a new character, free to play, not even using the events they give you to progress the new character from 0 to the latest raid. It took me 2 weeks. And that's without me taking all of the freebies they give you. On another character that I didn't do such a detailed guide on, the latest one, Kale, I did it in under a week, I think. You can level up the character and you can gear up the character in such a way that you are able to participate in pretty much every content. So, as I said, I think it's really positive how new players are able to rush into the end game and not missing out on all of the fun. Last but not least, this is the banger. This is probably the reason for why you should play the game if you have been thinking about it. And I hope it has been running in the background since the start almost. It's the combat. If you like what you've seen so far in the background, trust me, it's at least twice as fun to play yourself. If you have been thinking about playing the game, it's a 100% that you should give it a go for the combat alone, if you are interested in really good action-based combat, because this will sound weird, especially if you haven't heard about Vindictus before, especially if you know how low the player base is, but without a doubt, it is the best action-based combat that you will find in any game out there. Yes, as I said, you would probably expect a game with such a good combat system to be more popular, but there are reasons for the game not being popular, like I mentioned the cons, and it just being a really grindy one, a Korean style game, which usually here in the West they don't get as much traction. But if you've been thinking about it, as I said, the worst thing that you will come across is installing the game, which takes like an hour, playing it for 5 hours and not liking it, right? It's free to play. And I mean, as I say it, give it a go. Okay, now that we covered some pros and some cons, let me discuss the question, is the game dead? And spoiler alert, no. I will now list some of the things Nexon has released, in 2020, in the last year. There were 5 raid battles, basically 5 new bosses, which almost makes it 1 new boss every other month. There has been 1 new Redeemer battle. Redeemer battles, for you guys that are not currently playing the game, they're basically bigger scaled raids. So usually you fight bosses in parties of 4. Redeemers are parties of 8. And they're just more challenging. They're basically your long-term progression. You have to kill them a bunch in order to get their rewards. There were 2 new characters added to the game. There was a new activity added to the game, which basically makes the game a tiny bit less repetitive than what I made it sound like in the cons, which is very cool. And there has been a new level cap increase to the game, which always comes with a full new set of weapons and armors. And that's actually a decent amount, and it will get better when I tell you that 2021 will not be any shorter of content. As of right now, we already know about a bunch of things, starting with a new PvP activity. Yes, I know 99% of you guys that are playing the game and want to play the game will do it because of the PvE. Because, as I just said, the combat system is just brilliant. And they didn't really translate it into PvP. Maybe I should add that for people that are interested. The game is, as of right now, 100% PvE. There is PvP in the game, but really, there's 5 people doing it. Sorry. Saying nobody would be not nice towards those that are actually doing it, but it's pretty much dead. Yes, this piece of content is non-existent. Okay. But as I said, a new 4v4 MOBA-like gameplay. You won't be playing as your character. You will be playing as some of the bosses that you usually kill in the game, which is a fun idea and will furthermore add something else to do in the game to give you a different range of activities to do. They also announced yet another Redeemer battle. I talked about Redeemers just a minute ago. There are these challenging high-tier raids, and it should be released in about February on the Korean server, which means we will get it around August here in the West. That's probably another thing I should add. We are delayed on the content. So the main server is the Korean one, and we are usually 6 months behind. Sometimes they speed up certain pieces of content, like characters. They might be released 4 months after the Korean one. There's also, I don't think it's been announced yet, but I am expecting yet another level cap increase on the Korean server, which will mean we might get it around November, December this year, 2021. There's a new character already on the Korean server. We expect it at around March to May to go live on the Western server, and with their release schedule of every 6 months there's a new character. We might even get a second character again during the end of the year. And now the big one. They are working on a new client. You remember earlier when I said the game is old, it's poorly optimized. If you load into the game, you will hear like some audio cue replaying itself over and over again, making you think your PC just crashed, but in reality it's literally just the game being the game. They're kind of trying to fix it. Right now the client is running on 32-bit. They are upgrading it to 64, which will fix some of the issues. And they have been working on it for a very long time. They first announced it a year ago, that they've been working on it half a year already. So basically 1.5 years they have been putting resources into creating a new client for the game. Which I don't know, proves to us, or to me at least, that they are still confident maintaining the game for several years almost, right? Why would you spend that much money getting a new client and then shut down the game the same year? Wouldn't make any sense, right? Would it? So with that being said, I also expect them to maybe tune up their releases, their new content, because they will have more resources. Right now, as I said, they're spending a lot trying to get the new client done. And once that is completed, we might see more content coming our way. Better content, reworks to things that desperately need it. So 100% the game is not dead. I think, as I said, just the client is proof enough that Nexon has a good idea about what the game will be for the next few years. Alright guys, that's already the end of the video for today. I hope you liked it, I hope you learned something. Maybe I was able to either get you to play the game or to stay away from, just to get your own opinion on it. That would be cool. If you have any questions about the game, please feel free to spam the comments down below. I'll be keeping an eye on it to answer everything that may still be on your mind. Also, if you're interested, check out the description for both of my Discord server, where I'm always available almost instantly. Okay, maybe not instantly, but I react to everything that you basically type in there. So again, if you want to reach out for more detailed information, the Discord is a brilliant way. or my Twitch, where I'm streaming about 3 times per week. So maybe you want to see some gameplay, maybe you want to get more informations to get you into playing the game. Yeah, I would really like to see you guys either in-game or on my Discord server. And with that being said, stay safe and happy Vindictus 2021. Bye.